Welcome to Actual Skill Modelling. This is part 6 of Moebius' Battlestar Galactica Colonial Viper Mark 1. Scale is 1 to 32. In this part, I'm going to be assembling the Viper, so the fuselage, the engine and the wings, also the landing struts as well. And just a heads up, when I assembled this, I had one or two little issues, so I wonder if you can spot them before I do. So let's jump into this and see how well I get on. So I'm going to start off with the main assembly. The paint's been drying overnight, so it's time to just slot it in. It's like a socket, it just pushes in. However, I noticed that the back does stand up a little bit proud. It's just the nature of it when it goes in. So that will need a clamp to just hold it in place for a good hour, I would imagine. Of course, I could have just held it as well until it was set, but it's a bit springy, so I think a clamp is better just to keep it in place, and I can move on to other things. The thing to note though, the engine cowl at the top of it goes inside it. There's a little recess it fits into. You may be confused and thinking it sits on top proud, but actually fits inside. And that will make sense once the canopy goes on. But when you dry fit it, just make sure that it is in the right position. Once it's dried, I can remove the clamp and it's time to fit the nose cone. That just gets pushed in. It is a weird angle really, but it does fit nice and flush. I've dry fitted this so many times to make sure I wouldn't have any gapping issues. It does sit flush, but you may have to just jiggle it a little bit to get it in. So now it's onto the wings or stabilizers, and there's three of them to go. This is the main one for the top, and as you can see, it's just two halves placed together. Interestingly, where the location struts are, that sits slightly proud. Don't worry if you think that doesn't match, it's meant to be like that. The landing struts, same with the wings, they are two halves placed together. The location points on these are nice and tight, and they'll just push in. You won't need any clamps or nothing like that to hold these. There's three to do in total. Now, on the underside, there is a bit of a seam, but I decided not to paint over that and sort that out. One, because there's the wheel sort of protrude outside it, so I would have to take care of that. And two, I thought, well, you're never going to see it, so I just left it. The main wings, I did run into a little bit of a problem, but the problem was my own making. And I always say, no matter what I'm building, I always manage to do at least one bit of a screw up on a building. This is particular one. So the problem is you can't pre-build these wings. They have to be built on the fuselage because of the way the bracket holds it. As you can see there, the location points are inside the wing, and the bracket goes into the bottom one, and then you assemble the top wing onto it. Now that process itself is fairly easy and shouldn't cause anyone any problems unless you're me, of course. As you can see, I've placed on the first wing, everything looks fine, and now placing on the second wing. And I've actually made a major mistake, but I'm not aware of it at the moment. I'll mention it once I get to once I realise what I've done. I wonder if anyone can see what I've done wrong at the moment. So the wings are on, and before I put the top stabilising wing on, I'm just marking in the panel lines. Now I always, well not always, but I generally use a pencil for this. A lot of people don't like using a pencil for it. I prefer the pencil. It's just my personal choice. In the video that I done, how do I paint and techniques that I use, I explain a little bit more why I use a pencil. But I'll go through it again. It's basically for the weathering technique. When I put the graphite on the model itself, I can put it as thin as thick as I want. But more importantly, when I varnish the model, the graphite, there's a good chance the graphite will run and smudge. Now, if you're looking for the pristine look condition, this is not a good idea. But I always go for a weathered look or a slightly shabby look. I prefer that on my builds. I don't like the brand new out of the factory look. So the graphite helps with this, with its run, with it running. It smears and smudges along slightly, depending how much graphite you put on it, of course, and then and it'll change the color tone of your paint gradually as you're putting on the varnish. Now, I haven't varnished the model at the moment, and of course you can varnish the model, then put the pencil on afterwards. But it's harder for the graphite to take on a varnish. And the other good thing about the graphite, as you can see there, I made a slight mistake, so I just used the eraser end of the pencil to take that away. So there's a lot less cleaning up process as well. But this method is not for everyone, and sometimes you can get in a bit of a mess. So anyway, it's back to the wings, and I'm now placing on the weapon systems. Now the weapons are easy enough to fit. It comes in two halves. The cowling that holds the weapon, the underside goes on first, and then the top will go on afterwards. Now there's a chance you may get a seam line here if you're not careful. I placed a clamp on mine just to make sure it's going to be nice and tight. If you do get a seam line, it's going to be quite difficult to fill in. So pay close attention to this part and make sure you dry fit it and have a look at how it's all going to join together. Next to go on are the landing gear bay doors. These were very easy to fit. They just slide on. You can see me just pushing them in. Some of them sat a little bit proudly, so I had to trim the stem. Now, I don't know whether the access point for these was large enough. I may have needed to trim them a little bit to push them in, but I just trimmed the stalk at the end actually and got them in. Once I put in the strut, the location point for that is nice and tight. Then I decided to take the doors off, trim them up a little bit, and relocate them. You can see there's too much of a gap. Well, for me anyway, I didn't like how they looked. And it was the same for the rear landing struts as well. The location points for these, they're nice, thick and circular, and they just push in, and they don't need a lot of pressure really for them to go in. But the way they're designed, once they're dry, they're solid. And you won't have to worry about them snapping off if you put too much pressure on them. They're a very good design for this kit. And then once that was all on, it was time to place in the upper stabilizer. This can only go in one way. Now it's a bit strange because it sits on the ridge where the engine block is. That has to be stabilized until it dries because it has got a habit of leaning to one side once you put it in place. And this is where I noticed I've done something wrong. So as you can see, the wings have came off. I put them upside down. Now, luckily, I was able to prise them off. They hadn't quite dried yet, so I was able to get them up without damaging them. And I just simply turned them around and replaced them. I was extremely lucky that I noticed them when I did, or the whole thing would have been ruined. I would have had to snap off the wings and try to reattach them somehow. It would have been a bit of a disaster, to say the least. I don't know how I managed to do it, just not thinking really. I'm normally quite careful about those sort of things, but this time it caught me out. But as I said, I managed to save it, so it all worked out quite well in the end. And this is where I'll leave part 6, reattaching these wings. I'm going to leave it a good few hours for them to dry before I go on. One of the struts did fall off, so I'm going to replace them as well. That was because I was yanking off the wing and the struts hadn't quite dried yet. So if you haven't done so already, why don't you check out the channel for my other builds. You may want to have a look at the paint guide that I did, which explains more about my painting techniques, and this model's covered quite a bit in that video. If you subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell. That way you'll be kept up to date with all my builds, including this one and my future builds as well, of course. Hit the like button, Don't be afraid to leave a comment, and of course you can share the video. But for now, thank you all very much for watching. Bye bye.